Welcome listeners to today's episode, a Nosleep titled The Other Side of the Grave, and your author is M59Gar. Now, today's story is definitely memorable and a two-parter. I'll release tomorrow's episode as part 2. So right after completing this one, I'm getting straight to work on the second one. And this story involves a college student that decides to end their life. And from this thought and the actions around that thought, their world begins to change. But before I sink my sharp teeth into today's story, time for some SoundCloud shoutouts. Troy Shaw, mate, thank you as always for your awesome support and sharp ears. Cheers, buddy, and I can't wait for that D&D story heading my way. Arkin Brother, aka Jace York, thanks for the likes, reposts, comments, and stories. Ever grateful, mate. And I got your email, and I'm looking forward to your next story. Kyle Brandt, thank you so much for your likes, reposts, and never-ending support. I haven't forgotten at all about Michi's journey, mate. I'm saving that one up. Rest assured, though, I'm recording it. Cheers, mate. Wee Woo, thank you so much for your never-ending support, buddy. Cheers, mate. Ruby Engum, for your awesome story, Imitation, that featured in yesterday's episode. Thank you so much for your support. Quasarbolt, for your lovely comment and constant support. Thanks, buddy. Katie Sturgill, so good to hear from you, mate. Thank you so much for your likes and support. You are just awesome. Maxwell Powers, that is a name of strength, mate. Thank you for the follow and support, buddy. Psycho, thank you so much for the likes, mate. Marjorie Freeman, thank you so much for the likes. Nguyen Vet Hung, thank you for the follow and likes. Nelson Break, oh yeah. Thanks for your likes and constant support, mate. Star Eve 2099. Thanks, buddy, for the follow and your lovely support. Cheers. E Brand. Thank you for the follow, you awesome gal. PVRP. Thank you for the follow, mate. And Sin. So good to hear from you. And to answer your question from episode 129, a wolf's set of keys and the lockless ritual. Yes, definitely a better rogue than Nolan. Cheers, Sin. Okay, fantastic listeners, I have my tea in hand, sipping away the delicious earthy flavours of an English breakfast at night. So just like me, turn the lights off, the sound up, and get ready for something different. I'll be blunt. I went to India to kill myself. In a way, I got my wish. Life had become a bleak and grey thing that looked to be a prison woven out of countless invisible strands. Money, cubicle, bad food, bad sleep. I was 2 years out of college and seeing the rest of my years flowing straight ahead with no deviation and no freedom. Raised on video games and television, I was now expected to suddenly fit into a drone-like routine. Wake up far earlier than I'd ever had to before. Sit at work going crazy from boredom for 9 hours, then drive home to eat, sleep, and do it all over again. Was this really life? I held out for another year before I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be a cog in a machine. But our world is not kind to young men who refuse the system. Every day on the way to work, I saw homeless people and how they were treated. I wouldn't go out like that. No. That was just a slow suicide all its own. I'd always been fascinated by television shows about other countries, so I chose my favourite, and I spent the remainder of my bank account on a ticket to India. Once I was there, once I'd seen all the wonderful sights and experienced another culture, well, there was nothing after that. No plans. Once you're out of money, you're as good as dead anyway. Turned out, India wasn't much different than home. Coffee shops, crowded streets, jobs, the same bitter meal, just with a slightly different scent and flavour. It shouldn't have been like that. It was supposed to be different. Another continent, same prison. I begged for change until I got enough to buy a bottle of sleeping pills. They weren't even that expensive. But the experience of asking strangers for money for 2 days straight was enough to convince me I was doing the right thing. I found a corner and ate them all a handful at a time. I don't even remember falling asleep. It was as if I had been thrust 1,000 feet deep under the ocean and I was rising. For a time, I thought I was free from my body and soaring up to heaven. But instead, I burst out of the waters of Lethe and banged my head into wood. A bunk bed? No. My arms were sore and tingly from disuse, but they still listened. My half-numb fingers found a rough surface about 2 inches above my face. It was dark. Why was it dark? And why was it hard to breathe? I began trying to flex my legs, but they didn't want to move. I managed to curl my toes after some efforts, and then the pain in my thighs and ankles seared into my awareness. My legs were bent and must have had poor blood flow for quite some time. I clenched my fist against the pain, and just remained like that until the pain finally passed. After that, I tried to stretch, and the truth hit me. I was curled up in a small wooden box. But why? And where? I pressed against the sides of the box but felt absolutely no give. It was poor quality wood with very little strength, which meant something had to be blocking it on the other side, and that meant... oh God! The bottle of sleeping pills must have nearly killed me, but not completely. They must have thought I was dead. They'd buried me alive. I was lucky to even have this box, really. As a foreigner, and someone with no money, has someone put me inside it as an act of kindness? If they'd just thrown me in a pit and buried me, I'd have been dead already. That logic didn't help me keep the panic back for more than a few seconds. I began screaming and beating at the thin wood with all my strength. Bits of dirt sifted down from above, but I kept attacking the wood until it began pouring down like the grains in an hourglass. The air was stale and I was suffocating, but I had no better plan. I would either die now or find... yes. They hadn't buried me deep at all, maybe a few inches. Sunlight! I could see sunlight and air. Air flowed in, oh God, the sweetest breath despite the choking dirt in the air. I screamed for help. There was no reply. Was I in some sort of graveyard? Of course, I had to be. My shout had to be in reality a small whimper. Nobody would ever hear it. I waited. I didn't hear anyone. Every so often, I shouted as loud as I could. The light outside dimmed, went dark, and then reappeared over the course of a cold night. That morning it began to rain. A little bit of water trickled down and I drank as much as I possibly could. The box creaked as the dirt above me grew heavier, and I was forced to roll onto my back and prop up my weak roof with my knees. I wasn't strong enough to bash my way up, but it could certainly fall in on me and crush me. How do I convey what it's like to be buried alive? Every story I've read or movie I've seen focuses on the initial terror of waking up underneath the earth forgotten. That passed quickly. The era after that was an endless one of waiting, thinking, and guessing. Do I shout now? Do I wait? Do I conserve my strength and try to break up through the surface when the dirt dries out? I hope it doesn't rain so the earth will dry, but I hope it does rain so I won't die of thirst. But I also hope it doesn't rain too hard or I'll drown. And always, always, always the box is present, like part of my body. No matter what position you choose, you can feel every single side of it. It's right there with you like a shell, like a second skin. You come to know every knot and grain in the dark. You even repair it and prop it up with your own strength, even though it's a damned thing that you're trapped inside. The box is death, but the box is also life. For 2 days it didn't rain. Then, right about noon, judging by the initial brightness of my soul beam of light, a new darkness joined me in my box. I thought someone had walked over my grave and I began shouting, but no, it was a thunderstorm. I prayed. You bet I prayed. I'd never been a religious guy before, but please, please, I said, please keep that rain to a light drizzle. When an inch of water had built up around me in my box, I knew it was time to act. It was do or die. I practiced a pose worthy of Cirque du Soleil, and I got into it now, bare feet planted solidly in that inch of water, knees out, arms curled under, back against the ceiling, all inside a box about 2 feet high. I pushed. The wood cut into my back, but I pressed with all the strength in my legs. There was a small give above, as if I was making a little bump in the dirt where some person might see it. I strained so hard, put so much of myself into that attempt, that I felt nothing else. I envisioned myself bursting free into the open air and rain. That's all I had to do. My body gave out first, and I rolled onto my back to rest for a second try. Something up there had moved. I knew I could do it, given time. But the box betrayed me and caved in on top of me. Dirt poured in as I fruitlessly fought the flow. I put my mouth to the narrow air hole in an attempt to avoid suffocation. All that did was leave me completely trapped and totally unable to move while wet dirt squeezed in over my eyes and around my neck. I was entirely encased in dirt except for my mouth, which was open to the air, and the rain was intensifying. I drank as much rainwater as I could. I even began eating traces of mud it brought down with it. Anything I could to keep that narrow hole in the ground above clear. Eventually, though, the rain overtook me, and I was forced to close my mouth and hold my breath. That was it, then. There were no more plays, no more tries. I'd come to India to die, even tried to kill myself with pills, and yet here I was, fighting desperately down to the very last second just to cling to life one moment longer. I was immobile on the ground, with a funnel of rainwater growing heavier on my closed mouth. How long could Olympic divers hold their breath? I had seen a show once while flipping through the channels. Was it 3 minutes? Was it 4? God, the pressure on my chest. I hadn't even gotten a full breath. 60, 61, 62, 63. I knew I was nearing my limit. What did I want to spend the last minute or two of my life thinking about? Girls I dated? My favorite movies? It was all nothing. But it was everything. Every mundane little thing in the entire world was now a luxury I would never have again. I would stroke the fabric of my cubicle at my boring job, if only to see again. To breathe one more time. Thunder struck overhead, so loud that I could hear it even in my prison of mud. I wish I could say that at the last moment, the hillside gave way under the fury of that monsoon and spilled me out onto a mudslide of corpses. That's what local law enforcement and doctors insisted on when I tried to tell them the truth. To them, I was just a crazy foreigner that had been traumatized by being buried alive. They refused to listen because I was not saved at the last second by the weather. In fact, I wasn't saved at all. I counted to 140 before my awareness started to halo out into shimmering white. Keep my mouth closed. Keep my mouth closed. Keep my mouth closed. Water, dirt, mud, pressure. Keep my mouth closed. That was all that remained. If you open your mouth, you die. But if you don't breathe, you also die. No choices. Something was tugging at me just before I gave in. Something was pulling at me, not from above, but from below. Chill iciness wrapped around my limbs and began to pull me down. I remembered the spray of released rainwater as it shot down from the hole where it had built up. Then I was dragged through the earth at breakneck pace. Keep my mouth shut. Keep my mouth shut. No longer. I let out dead air and gasped. Somehow, I was alive. I'd been deposited somewhere full of soft round lumps and hard straight lines. The air here was breathable, but horribly foul. As much as I wanted to escape darkness, I let myself just be alive for a few minutes. I think I knew something was wrong, but it wouldn't begin until I opened my eyes. Finally, I was fully conscious again. Still dark, no light. I began to crawl along the acrid piles. Long, solid objects clacked hollowly against one another. Big round soft lumps rolled as I pushed my way across. As I went, I began to suspect, but I didn't truly know, until my hand fell upon the unmistakable lay of a cold nose and mouth. The human head rolled away down the pile of bones I was crawling over. I saw nothing, but I knew. And thus concludes part 1 of The Other Side of the Grave. Well, stay tuned for the next episode where I'll jump right in and finish off The Other Side of the Grave. One hell of a no-sleep story. By the way, if you do have a little bit of time and have a story of your own, send them straight to me here on this address, StoriesFablesGhostlyTales@gmail.com. One more time for good luck. StoriesFablesGhostlyTales@gmail.com. And if you're an iTunes listener, pop on over to my channel, click on my icon, and leave a little review. It helps the channel grow, it grants the authors on this channel more exposure, and spreads the word around the globe regarding really unique stories and awesome writers. Now, I understand this takes time. I mean, yes, I listen to podcasts, and yes, I know it can be a pain. But if you get a chance, I'd 100% appreciate it. And thank you, listener. Whether you're on Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, any platform, you are the blood that keeps the channel pumping. So thanks. And on that note, it's that time. This is the place where stories live, and you telltellers come to listen. Enjoy your day or night, and join me every weekday for our creepy tradition. And as always, till next time.